Many years ago, I had found a teacher who was incredibly helpful to me in my own journey of learning about healing and what healing meant. So I'd gone through my near-death experiences and I'd been nursing in hospitals, and I came to the northern part of Australia in Queensland, and I found this particular teacher, and he was happy to take me on. So about 3 days a week I'd go up to his place. He lived out on a property in a remote area, and I would sit in his clinic with him and learn and watch just by not saying anything. And then at the end of the day we'd have discussions, question and answer. And I was comparing the difference between how modern medicine deals with acute crises, and how if we've had serious accidents or injuries or emergency situations, it's really good at helping keep us alive. But in chronic situations where there's been a slow onset of disease and disorder and the health is declining, that was the part I was really interested in. And so as I watched and learnt and observed and asked questions as the months went on, I mentioned to this, who is now a very dear friend, I said, how come that some people just don't seem to get well? They keep coming back pretty much with the same problem. And no matter what we do to give them stuff, they just seem to find another problem or another issue, and life is just one drama after another. What's that all about? And he just reflected for a while, and he said to me, we can all change. Every one of us has the capacity to change and become the driver of our own world. He said, but unfortunately most of us don't. And part of that is because most of us don't know we can change. And so we're led to believe that who we are is who we are, that we're a product of our ancestral makeup, our genetic predisposition, and that we can't change it. Well, neuroscience is telling us that that's actually not true, that we can actually change. And so I like the analogy to explain something here of the iceberg. So you may have seen the picture of there's an iceberg, and the top of the iceberg is above the water, just a tiny little bit of the iceberg. And then you look below the surface and you see that a huge amount of the iceberg is underneath the water. And then surrounding that is the ocean itself. And so we're like that. In other words, we talk about the conscious part of us, the part of us that we understand in our day-to-day life. We communicate through that part of our brain and our mind. We're consciously aware of things. And then we go below the water's surface, subconscious. And that's the program that's underneath us. And that's the dream world. That's the state we go into when we sleep. And our dreams and our urges and our instincts and our frustrations and our desires all show up in our dreams. Yeah. And even if you don't recall your dreams and you're not a person who says that you dream, we actually all do dream every night. And then surrounding that lower part of the iceberg is the ocean itself, which is what's also known as the superconscious, or the, if you could like to say it in another word, the more expanded part of us that I've spoken about before. So it's like the spiritual or the eternal or the ocean of life that we are in, that we are a part of. So coming back to how do we truly heal? If we've got chronic problems, health problems, relationship problems, issues that just keep coming back again and again and again, and we can't seem to get over it, that's when it's a good time to think about, what can I do that's truly going to change the way I deal with these challenges in life. And if you study anything of these subjects, you'll realise that the change, and it's even been said in holy texts of different religions or throughout time, is that the change that can happen in the outside world has to first happen inside of us. And so it's even, I like the term, says the kingdom of God is within. It's within us. So what does that mean on a practical level? It means that there's a couple of things that we can do to change our program, what we were handed with, so that we're no longer just a victim to the same old story, the same old problems and threats and challenges that our grandparents and our parents have lived with and that we've taken on as a little one. So what are those things? One of them is hypnosis, hypnotherapy. Now, we can go to a hypnotherapist and we can get them to do what we call auto-suggestion. So we go into a very relaxed state, the mind opens, and they put in positive suggestions, which goes into our program, our established program, and alters that for the better. So that's one way to do it, but ultimately I like the idea of doing it ourselves, because the kingdom of God lies within. So how do we hypnotise ourselves? We do that by meditation. We can sit still and quieten our mind and watch our thoughts and observe them and realise that they're just thoughts. That does not dictate who we are. They're just thoughts. They come and they go. The other thing we can be aware of is when we're going to sleep and when we're waking up in the morning and coming out of sleep, the mind is also open. So that subconscious for that few moments is open to suggestion. Just like it was for the first 7 years of our life, when the basis of who we were going to be following our genetics was laid down. So we can actually change that program. And we do that by very quietly, gently saying things from the heart to counter the negative programs that have gone into us. We all know about the negative programs. I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not strong enough. Everyone's better than me. I can't express myself. I'm too shy. I don't have enough. I'm not worthy. On and on the list goes. And most people carry these to some degree or another. But if we gently and lovingly say to ourselves in the quiet times in meditation, or when we're coming out of sleep or going into sleep, these new positive things, we're gently changing the story. And that gradually creates a shift inside of us that at first is very subtle, but it continues on. And there is a third way that I've found that helps, and that is what I call vibrational medicine. So vibrational medicine, that's flower essences, gem therapy, homeopathic medicines. So they are substances that go in and change the frequency, the electromagnetic frequency of our organs and our cells and our systems that work in our body, and ultimately change that frequency in our mind, the one that restricts us and holds us back and tells us we're never going to get better, we're never going to get over this. And so they're the three things that I've found in life. So quiet reflection, contemplation, meditation, homeopathy, and probably another one that's really important too that I've just thought of, and that is just to pause, just to stop. So if you notice yourself saying the same old thing that your parents used to say, or saying something to yourself that you don't want to keep saying, I call it stinking thinking, then just pause for a moment, take a breath and say, nah, cancel that one. I'm going to change that and I'm going to put in there something that is much more the story that I want to write, the story of the new me. And then we can change, we can get better, life can get better. Doesn't matter what's going on the outside, it's the way we respond to it that makes all the difference.